All right, guys, so here is the training on title clearing, and this is the title curative coordinator role. The agenda is as follows: the purpose of clear title, the title commitment, resware actions, the process, curatives, title clearing guidelines, title resources, and the final title note. So the purpose of clear title is actually the end product of what we do here, and it's issuing the title policy. So everything that we are doing here, the title search and the closing piece, is all for us to issue a title policy, and that is what the lender is buying. That is their product. They're buying a title policy from us. They are getting the loan policy. That's for the lender, and we also do owner's policies, and those are for the homeowner. Okay, so primarily with purchase transactions, the homeowner will obtain an owner's policy. However, if they did not obtain one when they first purchased the property, they also have the availability to buy that at any time. So sometimes we do refinances where the homeowner wants to get an owner's policy as well if they haven't done so already. Title insurance, very important to know what title insurance is. So I pulled this definition for us. A policy issued by an insurance company guaranteeing that the title to a parcel of real property is clear and properly in the name of the title owner, and that the owner has the right to deed the property, convey, or sell to another. Should a problem later arise with the title, such as an inaccurate description, the insurance company will pay the damages to the new title holder or secured lender, or take steps to correct the problem. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. So let's take a look at the title commitment. What it actually is a promise to issue the title policy after the closing. It's a commitment. We commit to issuing a title policy under all of these circumstances. So it includes the public record information for the subject property. It has general and specific requirements that must be met at closing, and it also includes exclusions from the property. The American Land Title Association, you'll hear ALTA a lot. This is a national trade association that represents 5,500 title insurance companies, title and settlement agents, independent abstractors, searchers of real estate. Okay, so the ALTA forms come from that association. Now the schedules in the title commitment. Schedule A is where you're going to find your effective date. Does everyone know what the effective date is? Okay. So the effective date is the date that the county records is good through. The insured parties and the amounts. The vesting and interest. The description of the property may be included in Schedule A. Sometimes you'll see that it will state, see attached Exhibit A, and then you'll see that in Schedule C. Schedule B1 are where you're going to see your requirements. What needs to be paid at closing, what needs to be released, what needs to be subordinated, any deed requirements. That'll all be in Schedule B1. Schedule B2 are all the exceptions. Everything that is excluded. Okay? Before I move on to the next one, in your folders, there's a title commitment that I just want to go through. So I highlighted important sections. So you'll see that in the green highlight, you'll see the American Land Title Association commitment for title insurance. So this is the ALTA form. You'll also see it circled on the bottom right-hand corner in red, the ALTA icon. You're going to have the title insurer on the commitment. So you can see First American on the top, also in the green. That's the underwriter. So that's the company who we're writing through. And down below in the green, you'll see that it's issued through equity. So you'll also have the agent who is issuing the policy. listed on the commitment. So if you have any work share commitments, you'll see who the underwriter is, and then you'll see the work share partner who's issuing the policy. Now, just a couple important parts in the yellow. So you can see in the first yellow highlighted section, it says the company's obligation under this commitment is to issue a policy to an approved insured identified in Schedule A in accordance with the terms and provisions of this commitment. So that's what we talked about. This is our promise to issue the policy in accordance with all of the terms and conditions. And then the second part, subject to the notice. So subject to Schedule B, Part 1, requirements, Schedule B2, exceptions. The commitment conditions, and First American commits to issue a policy according to the terms and provisions of the commitment. This commitment is effective as of the commitment date shown in Schedule A for each policy described in Schedule A, only when the company has entered in Schedule A both the specific dollar amount as a proposed policy amount and the name of the proposed insured. Okay, so if you move to page 4, you can see Schedule A. You're going to see there's the loan number on there, our file number, the property address in the upper left, the effective date. Number 2, you're going to see that there are the 2 Alta policies. So B is X'd out for the lender's policy. So this is for a refinance transaction where we're issuing a lender's policy in the amount of $92,000. Okay. Number 3 shows the interest estate. So in the last training, we spoke about the fee simple interest. So it shows here on the commitment along with the vesting on number 4. And then number 5 will either be the legal description or it'll say see attached. Okay, so the next page, Schedule B1, are the requirements. So you'll see in number 4, documents satisfactory to the company that convey the title or create the mortgage to be insured, or both. Most must be properly authorized, executed, and delivered and recorded in the public records. A mortgage or a deed of trust from Peggy J. Gray to SunTrust Mortgage in the amount of $92,000. So that's just saying that in order to issue this policy, we need a mortgage that is executed properly from the borrower to the bank in this amount of money recorded in land records. Okay, number 7, proof of identity, legal age, competency, and marital status. That's one of those general requirements. Number 12, proof of marital status for Peggy J. Gray is required. That's specific. This is Florida. This property is in Florida, so it's a marital state. We need to know her marital status. So that's what I meant about general requirements and specific requirements. And then the additional requirements are also the specific ones, and those list the liens that are on the property. So the existing mortgage to SunTrust for $84,000 is marked up to say omit to be paid at closing. The reason why it says omit is that it's going to be omitted from the final title policy. It's not going to remain. We're going to be paying it off and it will be released.
Question.
Yes.
So for number 12, you said that's a specific one because we're in Florida. So yeah. Proof of marital status, is that going to be by an affidavit in the equity docs, or is it just us calling and verifying and she says, I am or
there's a marital status affidavit.
Okay.
Yep. And then this one also has a judgment that'll be paid at closing. So that's a specific requirement. We need to have that payoff. We need to include it on the CD, send the payment to the creditor, and satisfy that lien. So those are the 2 requirements. Okay, so those must be met at the closing in order for us to issue the policy. Okay. Any questions with that? Schedule B2 are the exclusions. So defects or liens or encumbrances that are after our effective date. We're only searching to our effective date back. So anything that happens afterwards is not covered by the policy. Any rights or interests or claims of parties in possession of the land not shown in public records. If it's not shown in public records, we don't know about it. Taxes or special assessments that are not shown. Okay. Number 10, you'll see this a lot. This is an exception that is pursuant to the plat book. So when the property is is described as in a plat, we always take exception to the plat book with the book and page number of where it's recorded in land records. That plat that shows where the property is may include any rights of ways or easements, anything to that sort. So we want to take exception to that. And then I believe we'll have our legal description on page 10, Exhibit A. You'll have your legal description, your parcel ID. Does anybody know what that paragraph is called that says that the above described property is conveyed to by the current deed? It references the current deed. Does anyone know what that clause is? It's the derivation. Derivation clause shows you where the property came from and what deed. The current deed on title. So it's going to say that this property that we're describing in this title commitment was acquired by our borrowers from a deed from the grantors, dated this date, recorded this date in this book and page. That is the derivation clause. Okay, so let's move on to resware. So most of our title clearing is just done through one action called title cleared. So that's the action you're going to see come into your queue, title cleared. You know you need to pick up that file and clear whatever curatives are in there. Other actions that we might have to use are a deed request, a sub that's needed, or a SEMA that's needed. All right, so when you're working in resware, the tabs that you're going to spend all your time in are search data. Within search data, you have two sub tabs. You have the general tab and you have the chain of title, which is also where the tax information go. The other tab is the curatives. You're going to use the pre-closing curatives. Your notes, obviously. The general tab where all the partners are, you're going to be using the property partner if you need to make any revisions there. And then obviously the coordinator assignment. So here's the process. There's 9 steps to clear a title. That's it, just 9. Okay? So this is what you're going to do. You're going to assign yourself as a title officer. You're going to check out the curatives. You're going to go through the file notes. Check out the documents that are saved in the file. Start clearing the items. You're going to file note everything. And you're going to tag the note title cleared that you want to pull onto your pipeline report. So we have a title officer pipeline report. And I'll speak about that a little bit later. But in order for your note to pull onto that report, you need to tag it title cleared. And it's green in the system, so that's why I have it green on the screen. You're going to deliver the title commitment to the customer if not done so already. Some of the customers have an automatic delivery when the underwriter clicks their review action. So if it's already gone over to them, you don't have to send it over again. But you want to communicate the items that you are clearing and give them a time frame with the expectations if clearing is still in process. Okay. Save a prelim title note or a final title note if you're all clear. And then click title cleared complete when you have all the curatives complete. Okay, that's the process. In a nutshell. So the title officer pipeline report, this is an automatic report that is sent every morning. I believe it's at 9:30 a.m. It shows all the files assigned to you in your name that have not been title cleared. Okay, so this is what it looks like. You'll have your file number, you'll have your client, the file open date, So you can keep track of how old these files are. You'll have your borrower's name, the loan amount. The loan amount is for us to identify insured and uninsured titles. So we just added that on specifically for DCU. The subject. So the subject's going to pull whatever you put as your subject in your final title note. So basically what we do is the subject's going to be what we're working on, what's being cleared, or what we're trying to obtain. So the first one's subordination. The second one's a judgment, mass housing lien, and then sub. You'll have the note date. So the date that you created the note, so you can see you're working on a subordination on the first file. You file noted on 4/16. Today is 4/19, I believe. Time to follow up on that file. Okay. The file status will obviously be open. If it was cleared, it wouldn't be on the report. The body is going to be whatever you put in the body of your note. Okay, so on this first one, Kim Aguiar, she's working on that subordination. She received all the requirements from DCU along with a subordination agreement. FedEx subordination to Financial Resources Credit Union. So she gathered all of the requirements, she prepared the subordination agreement, and she FedExed that request to the subordination lender. So she knows she did that on 4/16. All right, so when she gets her report in the morning, say she gets it today, she'll want to pop into that file, make sure shipping shows that it was delivered. And then she can make a phone call and say, hey, do you have the package? Do you have everything you need? Are we missing anything? Just kind of follow up. So it gives you a time frame of when you need to follow up on your files. It's a clear view of what's going on in your files rather than being in a queue and just seeing the file name in the number. So this helps you organize your day and knowing what files that you need to follow up on, okay? And it's pulling your notes, so you organize it the way that it's going to help you, okay? And this is automatically delivered to you in the morning. You can always access the report at any time throughout the day and pull a new one, okay? And I can give you a link to do that. Once you start pulling files and clearing, just let Christian know and he'll put you on the distribution list. Okay. All right, so when you are clearing and you have to make updates to the title commitment, you're going to update vesting in the search data, the chain of title. You're going to go into the deed if you have to update the grantees. You're also going to update it in the vesting field in search data general and the buyer partner. If you have a deed that's going to be signed at closing, you're going to add a deed requirement. Updating liens under search data and the general liens and requirements, you can double click on the lien or you can highlight and click view edit. It's going to open up a template. On the bottom, it's going to say language template, and that's when you can change the markup. So a markup is anything that says omit to be paid at closing, to be subordinated, to be released. That's a markup. So you can free type right in there what you need to change the markup.
How do we get access to that? Because I tried to do it yesterday, but I don't think I have the permissions to do it.
Okay, so we'll have to give you the permissions. So it's based on role.
Okay.
That's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. We'll make sure everyone gets access to do that. Okay. And this will make a lot more sense when you're actually in Resware and you're following along with what it is. All right. So the curatives. All right. So the underwriter, will pull a file once it has been keyed. They're going to look at the search package. They're going to go through the conclusion sheet from the examiner. They're going to read through the deeds. They're going to look at the mortgages. They're going to make sure that the mortgages are attached to our property. So make sure the legal description is the same as the legal description in our deed. They're going to look at the any other liens. They're going to make sure that everything that's reported does attach. So they're going to look at maturity dates, expiration dates, all of those statute of limitations based on state and type of lien. and they will identify what attaches. Okay, so anything that does not, they will eliminate. Everything that remains, they're going to make sure it's on the commitment, and they're going to do curative. They're going to make a curative for it. Okay, there are some instances where there's a judgment that is shown against a name, and they're not certain if it is our borrower at that time. So the curative is going to be to verify if it is our borrower. Okay. The first mortgage being paid off for the refinance, that will automatically be cleared by the underwriter. So you can see in the picture here, the curative, you have the curative checklist, you have approved, and you have cleared. So the first one cleared by Kathy Hamilton, that is the mortgage to be paid. That's the refinance. It's the mortgage to be refinanced. That will always be clicked cleared by the underwriter. Okay. Something to note with this. So the specific direction that the underwriter gives can be found in several parts. So it depends on how the curative was set up and where they can free type in, and it depends on the underwriter and where they like to leave their notes. Okay, so sometimes you're going to see it in the payee details. I forgot the L in details. So you can see down here, Kathy on the lien highlighted in blue, SunTrust Bank, payoff or sub. That's where she has her note. So we need to identify, is this going to be paid off or is this going to be subordinated? You can also put in a note, so they can attach a note to that curative. So on the top one where it says notes 1 over to the right, you can double click on that. It will take you right to the note, and they might leave a note there that says payoff or sub or whatever the case is. The other place that it could be is an internal comment, and that's the picture down below. If you double click on the lien, it's going to open up a template that looks like that. There's an internal comment in that box that says verify status of mortgage. So if you don't see a note at the first glance, double click on it, see if there's an internal comment, see if there's a note attached. There could be several places where it may be. All right. All right, so let's go through some of the common curatives that you may see. So this is all of vesting. Vesting could be really, really simple, or it could be really, really difficult. All right, so the first one, verify if the title holder will remain and be available at the closing. So you have one borrower that came over on the order, one borrower on the 1003, and title is in 2 people. So you have your borrower and then maybe a spouse. So we need to make sure that the spouse is remaining on title. And really what we want to make sure is that they're not going through a divorce and the spouse is not deceased. All right, so if the spouse is remaining and they're going to sign at closing, really, really, really simple. You just get a yes and you approve the file. So looking at the 1003, maybe the 1003 has that information. If the loan officer fills it out completely, there is a section on the 1003 on the first page that says title to be held in. And sometimes they'll say the 2 names, or they'll say jointly with spouse or husband and wife. And then that gives you an indication that the spouse is expected. And then also it would show married. So if it shows married and it says expected to hold with the spouse, you know that they're married. They know the spouse is on there. Everything's expected. You can use the 1003 to clear that curative. Okay? If you don't have the 1003, you can contact the borrower. Just ask them. Call them up. Hi, I'm working with SunTrust Mortgage on your refinance transaction. They contacted us to do the title and closing piece of your transaction. So we ran the title search. We see that you're the only borrower, but you also hold title with your wife. We just want to make sure that your wife is going to remain on title and she's going to be available to sign the documents, because there are a few documents that she needs to sign because she is an owner of the property. Okay. Another vesting issue is divorce. So if this is your situation, you need a property settlement agreement from the borrower. So the ex-spouses will come to an agreement. Usually one is coming off title and they're getting a certain amount of money for their interest in the property. It's a buyout. We want to make sure that we have the settlement agreement that states who is awarded the property, and if there is a buyout, we need that amount, and that needs to be collected on the CD. All right. We also want to verify if the divorce is final, and this is important for marital states. So even if if there's a pending divorce and you're in a marital state and you're removing the spouse by deed, if they're still technically married, that spouse needs to join in that deed if it's a homestead state. So that's important. And we also need it for deed prep. So if you're preparing a deed, you need to make sure that we know if they're still married or if they're divorced and single. Death vesting. So the first thing that we need to do is verify how the individuals held title. So in the last training, we spoke about that. If it's one person on title or if it's several people holding as tenants in common, then probate would be needed. So that's very important. That's your first step. See how they held title. If it's joint tenants with rights to survivorship or tenants by the entirety, it automatically goes to the survivors. Okay. If that's your case, you need a death certificate for our file. If it's tenants by the entirety, we spoke about how divorce severs the tenants by the entirety tenancy. So the death certificate needs to be reviewed. Make sure that it says that they marital status was married to the person that they held title to. Because we've seen that before where it says married, but it was married to somebody else because they took title way long ago with a spouse, since got divorced and then remarried and then died, and the death certificate said they died married to somebody else. So it needs to be very specific, and it will show that on the death certificate. It will show the marital status and then who the spouse was. Okay, so those are all important things to remember. Trust vesting, you want to obtain the trust agreement from the borrower for review. There are expedited clearing standards on that. If we have a previously recorded trust certificate on record, we can use that trust certificate to prepare a new one and have the trustee sign that at closing. So they're basically we're stating all the facts that were in the previous trust agreement, and they're signing it saying that these are still the facts and these are all true. And as third parties, we are able to rely on the statement from the trustees. Okay. An LLC or a corporation, those are the things that we need. We need an operating agreement. We need to make sure that we know who the members are. We know who has authority to sign documents on behalf of the company. The good standing certificate comes from the Secretary of State, and that tells us that they are in good standing, meaning that they have filed all of their annual reports and they don't have any outstanding taxes to be paid. All right, and an LLC affidavit can be generated through Resware, and it's basically signed by the members saying that they agree to either mortgage the property or sell the property, and this person has the authority to sign documents, and they're signing it for our transaction. Any questions on vesting?
I have a question about like when we would know what needs to be recorded. Like I know that you can't record a death certificate in every state, but how do you know where you can and where you can't?
That's a good question. There's no list that we have that will tell us that. Doesn't exist. Our stance previously for best practice was to obtain them and record them, but we're finding more and more counties were rejecting them and not wanting to record them. So we got away from that, and we don't do that unless it's registered land where they require it. The only other instances is if we need to record the death certificate to convey title. So we spoke about the enhanced life estate where the remainderman would obtain title upon the deaths of the grantors. In that instance, we would have to record the death certificate to show that the grantors died and the title transfers to the remainderman. Okay, so only in very specific situations is when we would record it. All right, any other questions with vesting? All right, let's move on to mortgages. So mortgages, you can have different instances. You can have a second lien. So we have our first mortgage that we're refinancing, a second lien, HELOC, home equity, that we need to just verify the status. So maybe we're paying it off at closing, maybe we're subordinating, or it could have been already paid and just not discharged on record. So pull credit. First thing you want to do is pull credit. Pull credit, pull credit, pull credit. That's going to tell you if there's a balance on the mortgage. All right, look at your 1003, ask the lender. If you pull credit, you can, and there's a balance, you can kind of figure it out. You can figure it out by the loan amount. All right, so you're pulling credit. You can see what the balance is of the first. You can see what the balance is of the second. Look at the loan amount. Is the loan amount enough to pay both of those off? If yes, sure enough, we're going to be paying both of those off. If the loan amount is pretty much equal to the balance of the first mortgage, you're probably subordinating your second lien. So pull credit, you can tell by the balances and the loan amount. You can get a clear picture of what's going on and get a good inkling of what you're going to be doing. All right. And the other mortgage that you're going to see is the opposite. So you have a prior undischarged mortgage. So you have a mortgage in first position that is before the mortgage that you're actually paying off. So you know that the mortgage that you're paying off paid off that previous mortgage. All right. So we have some expedited standards on that. That's in another slide that we'll go over. All right, a subordination. We spoke about a subordination. We need to obtain the requirement list from the sublender. We do have a list of subordination requirements in the P drive. All right, we have a lot of those already. So if you have one, you need to contact whatever bank to get those requirements from. Look at the P drive. We might have that list already there. When you're doing a subordination, there are very specific documents that is needed. When you're sending the request, we need to make sure that everything is included. There are many sublenders out there that will get a package. They'll take a look at what's included. If one thing is missing, they'll mail it back to you. And they're not going to FedEx it back. They're going to mail it back. So you're going to get it back a week later. And then you're starting from the beginning again a week later. So you need to make sure that every document that is requested is included in that. And when we're going to the new lender to obtain documents, take a look at our file. What do we have already? Do we have the 1003? Do we have the loan estimate? Do we have an appraisal? What documents do we have already? And only request the ones that you need from the lender. You don't want to go to the lender and say, here's the list of all the requirements. And they're going to say, well, you already have half of those. Just tell them what we need, okay? They don't need to know all the other stuff. Just tell them what we need. Judgments and liens. So there are different instances with the judgments. So you're going to have some judgments that you're going to have to verify if are a borrower. So you might just have a name on the judgment and you need to gather more identifying information because it might be a debtor with someone that shares the same name with our borrower. So you'll have some of those. Credit, we pull to get that identifying information. Credit will show you if there are any public records that are against the debtor, the person that you're pulling the credit on. It has a section. Public records, it will show zeros if there are none, or it'll show ones. It shows federal tax liens, judgments and liens, all of those. So you'll take a look at that section. It's not 100% accurate, but it gives us a good picture of the person. All right, they're also going to have AKA names. They have employers on there, previous addresses, You'll get your middle initials, your date of birth, all that identifying information. So the credit report is our best friend. All right. So the other thing is if we have a judgment that we do know is our person. So we have a judgment, here's our name, and maybe it has our property address on it or our social. And we know for sure that's our person. So then we're trying to figure out, okay, is it open with a balance? We need a payoff, or maybe it's been paid, just not released. So you need to contact the creditor's attorney or the creditor if there's not an attorney and obtain the status for that. All right. Any questions on those? Just a couple more cures that you might see. A UCC, it's UCC is a financing statement where someone needs to take out a loan for many different things. All right, so it could be solar panels, it could be for a water heater, it could be for a swimming pool, tractors, TV, boats, anything. The only ones that we have to look into are the ones that attach to real estate. And the only ones that attach to real estate are UCCs that are for something that is attached to the home. Okay, so a water heater that is in the home, connected to the home, that attaches to the property. A TV is not connected. A TV is personal property. All right, so if you think about if you could pick up the house and shake it, anything that would still be connected would be attached to the property and would have to be satisfied in our transaction. Okay, so a TV wouldn't apply, a tractor wouldn't apply. A swimming pool is different. Okay, so a swimming pool that is an above ground pool that is set off to the side in the yard, not connected to the house, that does not attach to real property. But a swimming pool that is attached to a deck, that is attached to the house, does attach to the property. So we need to be very careful about pools, and we need to obtain the information from the borrower, look at the appraisal, see if we can figure out if there's a deck attaching the pool to the house. So anything that's attached to the house attaches and must be included in our title commitment and dealt with. So we need to either pay it off, subordinate it, or terminate it.
What about in-ground pools? Just because you mentioned above ground.
No, they're not, if they're not,
same idea.
Yeah, if they're not connected. So basically, if you remove whatever it is and you do damage to the house, that attaches. Good question. NOC is a notice of commencement. So this is, you'll see these a lot in Florida. So when a homeowner wants to do work to their property, maybe they need to put in a re-roof, or they're doing adding on a four-season room. Windows, yeah, windows we see a lot. They file a notice of commencement, and it will list the contractor on it and the work that is being done, contractor's information. So these last for a year. So if we're still within the year, we need to contact the builder, ask that the work is completed and that they were paid for it. All right, so we need to make sure that the work is done and they were paid. If they haven't been paid, what do? Get a payoff statement, pay it at closing. If they have been paid, work is done, they have been paid, it's all set. There are 3 affidavits that we prepare. These are all in ResWare. Builder's affidavit, that's executed by the builder. They're saying that they did the work, they got paid. That gets recorded. Notice of termination, that gets signed by the borrower at the closing, and that gets recorded. Okay? So the builder saying that they did the work and they got paid, and then the notice of termination is the borrower is stating those same facts. Okay, so both of those get recorded together to release that notice of commencement. And we also have an owner's affidavit signed at closing, and that is just for our file. That does not need to be recorded. Also in your folder is title clearing guidelines. Okay. So these are going to give you situations that you see and will allow you to know, these will tell you to know if you can omit the lien and title clear the file. All right, so there's a lot of information on here. I wanted to tell you about the expedited first mortgage. So if you have a first mortgage that has been paid by another first mortgage, and they're both by an institutional bank, so it's not a private mortgage, that you can clearly tell it was a refinance and it paid it off. So you have a mortgage for $150,000 by Wells Fargo, and then a mortgage after that for $175,000 by Bank of America. You know that the Bank of America mortgage paid the Wells Fargo mortgage. It's a first lien mortgage, which means the lender would have gotten a loan policy, which means the agent who issued the loan policy would have paid off the previous mortgage. Okay? Those instances, we can mark omit right away and do a prior mortgage affidavit to be signed at closing. That's just signed by the borrower saying, yes, I had this previous mortgage and it's been paid off. The lender has not been contacting me for payment. It's paid in full, close, it's all set. That just gives us a little hold harmless for our file. Our statement from the borrower saying that it's been paid. We can move forward on that. So that is an institutional bank, closed-ended mortgages, first mortgage liens. All right, so we can't use that for private mortgages. We can't use that for home equities, HELOCs, HELoans, none of that. All right, so we want to make sure that we have an insured mortgage paying off the previous mortgage. All right, so some home equities, as we know, are not insured. So we want to make sure that we only use that for insured first mortgages. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Insurable and marketable title, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. So what we do here is insurable title, with the exception of one client. Who was that? DCU. Okay, so insurable title. We obtain sufficient proof for our clearing, okay? We have the proof that we need to insure title. So in the instance that we were talking about, the first mortgage being paid off by a previous mortgage, we would look at the credit report and see that it's been paid off. If anyone came to make a claim in the future to us and say, oh, this mortgage has not been released, we have our proof. We have our credit report showing this mortgage was paid. We have proof. We have the prior mortgage affidavit signed by the borrower. We have a deceased title holder. We have the death certificate in our file. That's insurable title. We have sufficient proof to be able to back ourselves up, okay? So if anyone comes at us questioning something, we have documentation in our file, okay? Marketable title is going the step further and making sure that everything is recorded, all right? So if we were obtaining marketable title, we would obtain a release for a mortgage that has been paid, and we make sure that the release is on record. That's marketable title. DCU requires marketable title for their HELOCs. mostly because 80% of their HELOCs are uninsured. So what that means is they don't have a policy to back up on. It's all of their risk. All right. So we're not making the decisions and clearing to our standards. They are taking on the risk. Okay. They don't have a policy to come back on and say, well, equity issued the policy, so that's their risk, and they have the proof. They don't have that luxury. They don't have that policy, so it's their own risk. They have to they want marketable title to make sure that those liens are absolutely cleared from record. So DCU is our client where we actually go that step further and we obtain those releases and we record the releases. Does that make sense? So anything else, any other customers, if we're clearing a mortgage, if we're clearing a judgment, if we get a paid in full letter from that creditor, from the mortgage company saying that it's paid in full, that's our proof. That's all the proof that we need. Put it in our file. We're not going to go a step further and get the release because we're not getting marketable title. We're not clearing to marketable title for all of our other clients. Any questions on that?
And that's why they get the property report, just giving them the information and not the junior loan policy because it's not insured.
Yes, the junior loan policy is an insured product. The property report, so that's basically, so when we're doing an uninsured product, our role is to search land records and produce a property report, a report, E&O report, simple report showing who owns the property and what liens are on the property. And that's basically our role. That's our role in an uninsured product. Then it's up to the lender to make a decision on if they can lend to this borrower based on what we've reported to them. Now, our role with DCU is a lot more in depth, and they actually want us to clear the title and do all of that for them. So it's different. So typically a property report is just a search and spitting that back out to the lender saying this is who owns the property and these are the liens. Okay. Title resources. Some of the resources I printed out for you that are, a short list. We have our marital rights, our mortgage tax exemptions, deed prep by state. We have a lot of other things that we use that I will send to you guys electronically. There are a lot of websites that we use as well. So when we're searching bankruptcy, we use Pacer. When we're running credit, we do that through Equifax. Lane Guide is a website that we can search a bank that has been closed and see where their assets have gone. So if you search Fleet Bank, it's going to pop out Bank of America. So then when you're clearing old mortgages that was to a lender who no longer is in existence, you know which bank to contact now for your proof that a mortgage has been paid. Netro Online, I'm sure a lot of you have been on there. That's a really good website to find phone numbers and links to websites based on county. You can get tax assessors and clerk sites. So we use Netro a lot. And I'm going to send out an email with all of the links to the websites that we use with the usernames and the passwords. The final title note. The final title note tells everybody what's going on with the file. All right, so it's basically just taking everything that's in your title commitment and putting it in one note that's easy for the rest of the floor to look at and see who owns the property, the liens, what's happening with them, are they being paid, subordinated, any original documents or additional recording fees. Will let you know that judgments in bankruptcy and Patriot searches were clear If mortgage tax applies, that needs to be in there. Property type, if the property is a PUD or a condo with the name. This is just all the information that everyone's going to need to know. Scheduling. Scheduler is going to look at the final title note and see who needs to be at closing. If a deed is required and any additional person that needs to be at closing, they need to know that. CTC, they need to know additional recording fees, additional processing fees, mortgage tax, property type. If they need to add endorsements for a PUD or a condo, anything to that sort. And then obviously the rest of settlement and disbursement is going to look at that. If there's a HELOC on title that's going to be paid and terminated, they need to make sure that the proper payoff letters with the terminations are going out to the lenders. If it's a SEMA and a SEMA in New York, we need to make sure that we're not wiring the payoff to the lender. We need to mail it in. Anything of that sort. All of the rest of the teams on the floor is going to use that final title note. It's a clear picture of what's going on. All right, so it's very, very, very important that we have everything included in that note. Now, part of that is that mortgage tax. There are 4 states that we have to include in our note. All right, because the qualifications are what we're going to see when we're looking at the title package. So when we're looking at the search package and reviewing the file and clearing the file, we're going to know if the mortgage tax applies or not. So we need to be putting that in our note. So that is printed out in your folder. Georgia, if the new lender is a federal credit union, DCU, the discount always applies. If it's the same mortgagors and same original lender, the discount applies. Now, the note on the Georgia is assignments don't count. It has to be the same original one. Okay, so if you have a SunTrust mortgage, a SunTrust file where we're paying off a SunTrust mortgage, but it was assigned to Wells Fargo, it doesn't count. Okay. Or I'm sorry, the opposite way. So if it was a Wells Fargo mortgage and assigned to SunTrust, it doesn't count. It has to be the original lender, same original lender. Kansas, same original lender and new lender. Assignments do count. So if you have a SunTrust file where the mortgage is to Wells Fargo and then assigned to SunTrust, that counts. Maryland, you need the same mortgagors on the current and the new mortgage. Howard and Prince George's County, mortgagors must live at the subject property to get the discount. So we need to make sure that it's their primary residence. Virginia, if you're paying off a mortgage, you get the discount. All right, it could be any mortgage, a first lien mortgage, it could be a HELOC. If you're paying something off, this discount applies. All right, we like Virginia, it's very easy. So here's just an example of a final title note. Property held in. We also have a borrower who's not on title, so we noted that. She needs to be there to sign documents. There's an estate tax affidavit that needs to be signed at closing, and we need to charge for recording. Number 11, our first lien on title is a HELOC for $75,000 to be discharged, charged for recording, and we're having an LOC affidavit signed at closing. That's a line of credit affidavit. The second lien on title, number 12, Fleet National HELOC, to be paid and terminated at closing. And we have our bankruptcies, judgments, and patriots are clear, and we're noting that the property is not a PUD or a condo. All right?
It's important to put property is in order for it to fall. Is that correct?
That is specific to DCU.
Okay.
Any other lender, you don't have to put anything unless it is a PUD or a condo. Then you note it. DCU is very specific in the final title note because we generate a closing report based on the final title note. So our closing report is going to pull the information about the PUD. So DCU is very particular to the PUDs and condos, and if it's not one, they want us to specifically say it is not a PUD or a condo. So the way that Chris Dion was able to generate the report for the report to look into the system and look for the subject line, final title note, look at the last line in the note, property is, that's how it needs to be structured to pull onto the report properly. And it's a little, very specific, but that's the way that we're doing it so that we only have to do it one time. Otherwise, we're going to have to note it a different way, in another way. We're already noting it, so we just need to be very specific to how we're noting it so the report can pull the information appropriately. So that's DCO. Clearing tips. All right, so whenever possible, clearing should always be done without the help of the lender and the borrower. All right, so the lender has contracted us to clear their title. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to clear their title. All right, we don't want to go back to the lender and say, okay, we ran the search and there's a mortgage on title. What do you know about it? That's not their job. That's why they have us. We need to figure it out. All right, contact the lender, pull credit, find out whatever you can before we're going back to the lender or calling the borrower. We need to clear title. We need to take all the necessary steps to clear that title before we are trying to get help from somebody else, because that's what we're contracted for. That's our job, is to clear title so they don't have to. Okay, they need to be selling loans. They need to be processing their files. Request releases right away. If you're trying to clear an old mortgage that's not pulling on credit, mortgages or any inquiries, any debts that have been paid off will fall off of the report after 7 years. All right. If it's not pulling on credit, if you're not finding proof that it's been paid right away, send out the release day one. Sometimes these releases can take 30 days. You don't want to order it 2 weeks after you get the file and you're like, oh, well, I'm trying to find proof of payment, and you're working on it, and then the last thing you need, or the last step that you can take, is order a release. You want to order it on day one then, rather than 2 weeks into the file. Okay. Specific file notes. This is for you. This is for you, and this is for your team if you're out. If you called someone, say who you called, leave the phone number, whatever you asked for. Be very specific. If you ordered something, put the turnaround time, leave the fax number, everything. You want to be specific in your file notes. If you go back to the file, you want to know what you did too. If you have to follow up, you need that phone number, you need that fax number, that email. Tag and use the pipeline report. So making sure that you're tagging your notes title cleared, and you're leaving your notes so that you can use your report to organize your day and follow up on your files appropriately. Very, very important. Do not pull another file until you've completely worked your current file. Okay? You never want to put your name in 10 files. Then you're just going to lose track of them. You're not going to go back and work on them. It's not effective. You want to pull one file and work it completely. All right, leave all the rest of the files in there. You have a whole team of people that are pulling files. So you don't want to just like hoard 10 files and then be stuck on one file when other people can be working on those other 10 files. You know what I mean? Follow-ups. Making sure that you follow up. If you order a payoff, it's supposed to be in 48 hours. You need to be following up on 48 hours, not a week later and then having them say, oh, I never got it. Follow up right away. Use the turn times that they give you. So making sure that you have that in your file notes. So if you pull your report and you ordered a payoff and you're supposed to get it in 1 day and you didn't get it, you got to follow up. Got to follow up. Think outside the box. All right, so we need to be creative. Clearing title is not always black and white, and that's why it's so difficult. Every situation is different. Every fact pattern is different. You're constantly learning, thinking outside of the box. If you think that you have a deceased title holder or deceased person in the chain of title, Google their name with obituary, and you can find that. You can find obituary. It tells you when they died. It tells you who they're married to. You can figure this out. Online is the best resource, which is the next tip, is online resources. Google. You're going to Google a lot. You have a judgment where it's listing an attorney on the judgment. You got to Google that attorney and get the phone number for them. You know, Googling creditors, tax offices. Update your client. When you're updating your client, make sure that you include expected turnaround times. All right, and make sure that you're scheduling follow-ups based on that time. So if you're the client and you have someone say, "Oh yeah, I ordered that payoff," that's cool. But what's even better is, "I ordered that payoff. Turnaround time is 48 hours." That's awesome. Now they have an expectation. They can rely on that. And then you schedule in your Outlook, schedule a meeting to yourself or a note to yourself. I'm supposed to get this payoff in. I'm going to schedule a reminder. I need to follow up on this. You have a really important file. I do that in my Outlook all the time. I put the file number, follow up on this specific day, specific time. And if you tell the lender that you're working on a file and you're going to update them at 3 o'clock, make sure you put that reminder in your calendar for 2:30. You want to update the lender. If you're telling them that you're doing something in a certain time, make those reminders. It's very easy to forget stuff. You're engrossed in a file all day long. Just make sure that you're reminding yourself, setting yourself up for success, okay? And escalate to the title experts. We have so many title experts on the floor. We have underwriters here. We have officers, myself, we have Ben. We all have been here for a very long time. We have a lot of knowledge. And we can brainstorm, think of other ways to clear something that may be unconventional. It's fun, actually. I just want you guys to remember that title clearing is a continuous learning experience. I'm learning every day, continuously learning. Every situation is different. Like I said, it's not black and white. There's a lot of gray, a lot of shades of gray. Make sure you ask questions. Like I said, utilize all of the title experts that are here at Equity. We have so many. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I ask questions all day long. Ben asks questions. He goes to underwriters. You're going to see different things all the time. Ask questions. All right? Be patient with yourself and kind to yourself. Title clearing is not easy. It's a lot of work. It really is. It's a lot of work. It's very fast-paced and stressful. Just be patient. Take your time, one file at a time. Escalate right away. All right? The last thing that we want to do is escalate too late, when by that time the lender is already upset. You kind of can't go back from that. So if you're not getting anywhere right away, escalate it then. Don't wait. All right? So be patient. Be kind to yourself. Don't get frustrated. All right? And that is it. Anyone have any questions? Ready to title clear?